Okay, good morning, everyone. This week, Torah is right on a theme that is something I'm actively involved in exploring with many communities today, and I think many of us are. Um, what does it mean to not position yourself on one side of anything? And to speak up your truth, to speak up against injustice. Is it possible and desirable to do both? This is a topic of discussion in many of the communities that I'm part of, the nonviolent communication community, the Buddhist community, the Jewish community, and peacemaker movements. And all of these is what inspires my encounters with the Torah. And this is the subject of this week's Torah portion. This week's Torah portion tells the story of an actual rebellion against the literally, because it's Torah, God-given structure and functioning of the priestly caste and its relationship to the rest of the community. It's what we might call today a political rebellion. And it's the only one like this in all of Torah. And it's so strikingly different from what we've seen in Torah, which is that when the people are scared and not content and are just totally doubting whether it's right to not be enslaved, they just resort to crying, grieving, screaming, complaining, shrieking. This is different. This is an actual rebellion. And like rebellions, I'm thinking particularly throughout European history, it's one group of would-be kings against another. And again, we're getting the relevance to today when 5 to 10 million Americans were out in the streets 2 weeks ago saying, "No kings. This is the foundation. This is what we want to be the foundation of our country. No kings." And that is the subject of this rebellion. Who made you king? Except because it's Torah, we know who made Moses and Aaron king. The mystery, the divine mystery, because it's Torah. So maybe Torah is saying, when you encounter something that this is how it is, this is the reality, how do you find your voice? How do you change it? How do you stop it? And it's clearly not by what Korach and Korach's followers, all of whom are members of the elite priestly caste, it's clearly not the path they take. So this is an incredibly prescient, relevant, I think important story for us to look at. Like, what does one of the age-old wisdom scriptures say about how to speak truth to power? Because maybe their points were correct. They did have a lot of important questions, like, who made you king? Because remember, a lot of the anointing that happens in Torah happened in secret, up in a cloud, on a mountain, in Moses' consciousness, in magical ways. Moses got to see who and why and how, and most people didn't. And this is not certainly what we think of as a democracy in the world today. So let's look closely at some of what's going on in this story to see what we can learn. What are our takeaways? And I actually had a lot of fun this week. Um, well, yesterday, because it's early in the week right now, uh, looking at the different ways of interpreting the languaging and the wording of Torah that have really taken the curiosity and minds and investigation of commentators for thousands of years. So the story this week, which is called Korach, after the Moses' first cousin who leads this rebellion, challenging the leadership and some of the highest functioning of the priestly caste. Um, it, Korach is the name of the whole story, and Korach is Moses' first cousin, who leads almost the entire priestly caste. So it's not just Korach by any means. Torah, the story begins with the words "V'yikach Korach." V'yikach means, depending on which definition and which commentator and interpreter you look at, Korach took, or Korach divided. And there's other meanings that I'll get into. Some traditional, really ancient, from the Talmud, Torah commentators note that Torah doesn't say what did he take, only that he took. And we can get from that right away, oh, is he just interested in power and enriching himself, taking and taking and taking? Is this just about greed? Is this just about someone who wants a position of leadership to accumulate wealth for himself and his own family? Because he's really complaining, not that there is a system where somebody has so much control. He's complaining that Moses and Aaron and their direct descendants, and of course they're all first cousins, so they're actually all related, that they're the ones who that Korach wants to take whatever it is that they have, whatever it is. And Korach, as the story unfolds, it shows, doesn't even understand what these rituals that Moses and Aaron have to do, doesn't even understand what they're about. But he's of the nature of taking. And we see what's happening in how all over the world, these leaders who are bringing us to war, that over and over we see that it's about taking and corruption and accumulating wealth. It's about taking more and more. Torah is saying this is not the leadership that will ever bring you to a promised land. This is not the leadership that will ever make you free. Other commentators really emphasize that a different meaning of v'yitach, that it means that Korach separated himself from the community just for the purpose of maintaining dissent and dissension. So these are would-be leaders who their whole MO, their whole way of functioning is to maintain division and separation and dissension, to cause chaos, to make sure that there is no order, to make sure that everything can be thrown up in the air and disrupted. And we see this is exactly what's happening in our country, and it's exactly what's happening in countries like Israel, India, these countries where they're taking age-old ways where people were trying to find their way to peace and safety and throwing them up in the air. And I don't want to leave out the leadership of Iran also doing the same thing. I mean, what does it mean for any country to want to have a nuclear weapon? And I'm including Israel and the US in that, not just Iran. It's to maintain this sense of high alert, of danger, that there's always going to be a bottom line where power and dissension and destruction is right there. Others, and I want to really note the comments of Rashi, the Academy, the Jewish Academy's most authoritative commentator from medieval times, says that Vayitach Korach, again, the first two words of this week's parasha, Korach took or Korach divided, says that it means that Korach took himself on one side. And Rashi, and then all of the commentators that kind of elucidate, highlight, amplify Rashi's thinking, says that it's this coming together of separating yourself from wholeness, So just taking a partial view, just supporting the interests of one group so that he could protest, so that the protest is that he leads in the Torah, which does not end well, right? Spoiler alert. This does not end well for Korach and his followers. That it's about uh, that the whole thing began when he separated himself from wholeness. And what Torah is saying is that our true safety comes when we embrace everyone, when we recognize that separating yourself and only standing for your needs is not only impossible because it won't work, it's just going to keep everyone on edge. And we're going to see in a moment some incredible, uh, colorful thinking from the Talmud that I love, that it's so disturbing, this compromising of wholeness, this division of anyone on the land, of anyone in a people, that the division is so disturbs the order that it shakes earth itself. And again, spoiler alert, what will happen to Korach and his followers? They will be swallowed up by the earth. So Torah is exploring here the theme of how a people who are learning to be free, how can they make their voices be heard? How do you speak truth to power without dividing the community, without stripping the community of its essential life force? And I think we are aware that we live in a global community. The greatest existential threat to all of us is the climate. There's no division between nations here. So we have to apply this today in our world today, with how we understand the world today, to the global human community, that we have got to learn how to change the power structure if that's what's needed, or raise questions about it in ways that come from a movement that isn't just for itself, but a movement that's for the wholeness, that's for the whole connection between the entire human community and essential life force. So Reish Lakish, who's one of the great, very colorful figures in and one of the writers, teachers of the Talmud, points to the name Torah gives to this rebel, Korach. And he writes in the Talmud that Korach means, his very name means bald, or balding, or one who causes baldness. And Reish Lakish says what this means, what Torah is teaching us, is that the way Korach separated and spoke only for himself and saw that the only way to get what he wanted and what he needed was to divide, is that he caused a bald spot in the middle of the Israelites, in the middle of the people. And again, Israelite, that's the subject of Torah here in this part of the story, not always. And the meaning of Israelite is the God wrestlers, the ones who are wrestling with the order that seems to be the only order. And they first came into being wrestling against Pharaoh's order, the order of enslavement. Now they're rebelling against a different order. And to Torah, it's the wrong order. But Reish Lakish is saying that when you rebel against the people, and again, I'm speaking about the human family, he said, what you're doing is you are causing baldness, stripping away one of the manifestations of life energy where there is supposed to be, he says, hair. It's right in the Talmud. Later commentators understood this balding definition of the name Korach. Uh, one, who is this from? It's from another earlier commentator, who's well later than the Talmud, saying that Korach is a description of a man who makes a bald spot, and that what that means is who causes depopulation. And that is exactly what happens. As I said, there will be another plague against these Israelites, and earth herself will swallow them up. And we will see how this plague is stopped. And in the Psalms later on, we see that the people actually were swallowed up to have a transformation in the bowels of the earth. They actually weren't killed. Still, other references in the Torah say that Korach, when he's identified as he is in the very first line, identified as the son of Yitzhar, that this combining of Korach's name and Yitzhar leads to a reference to the middle of the day, to the midday, and that Korach's actions were so disturbing to the order of the cosmos itself, to the midday, that they caused the world to become even hotter at midday, and that Earth herself became so angry at this heat, at heating her up, that is why Earth swallows Korach and all his followers. So this connection between war, which is what happens when you only stand for one part of humanity, this connection between war and warring and the heating of the planet and the anger of the planet so that it will just swallow us up is right here in this Torah portion. And I just want us to stop and think for a moment about the connection between war and war machine and the heating of our planet and all of the resources that are going right now toward building up this war machine instead of going to finding ways to cool our planet. And this analogy that Torah's making between the heating up of the energies and the passions and the emotions to the point that they go to war. That's what's happening here. And Torah is pointing to what is it? What is it that we have to do to cool ourselves, to cool our anger, so that we can cool the heating of the planet and save ourselves and save our precious Mother Earth? Moses and Aaron, because it's Torah, they come forward with different ways of addressing the divide and the dissension. Moses proposes a ritual for them to all do. And yes, the ritual he proposes is a test. Like, let's see which ritual is actually going to work. And I'm all for that. Let's have rituals that work. Let's have rituals in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam, in Buddhism, in our lives, in our families that work to heal. Let's do that. Let's have rituals that are for the purpose of healing and bringing peace. So Moses proposes a ritual, and he invites all the people on all the sides to participate in the ritual. But the first group he approaches, which is his cousins, maybe not his first cousins, but they're all in the same Levite caste, Levite family. The first group of followers of Korach, who Moses approaches, declines to participate in the ritual. And they say to Moses, why did you bring us out from a land of milk and honey just to let us perish here in the desert? What? The people, the followers of Korach, have been so deluded by what we can only imagine is very fake news. Actually, it's like ultimate gaslighting. Something has gotten into their head because these are the people who came out of enslavement in Egypt. That was not a land of milk and honey. That was a land where they were groaning under such unbearable enslavement that finally the cosmos said, yeah, we're going to stop this. Where Moses brought them out from was not the land of milk and honey. That was the place where frozen hearts dominated and enslaved them. So their minds have been completely turned around. And this is how it is that they have come to follow Korach. And Torah is showing us how completely confused humans can get from fear, from despair, from hopelessness, from not being included in the decisions that affect their lives. And this is where the speaking truth to power comes up. Maybe the order that was being set up was okay, but if you set up an order without including and giving full knowledge and transparency to everyone who is affected by that order, people are going to be really confused and not happy. And they're going to start to confuse enslavement with milk and honey. And so the people, the followers of Korach, have are so confused because they haven't been included in any of the decisions. They haven't been able to see them, that they think that the land of milk and honey was in the past rather than in the future. And I hear in this the echoes of "Make America Great Again," or let's go back to a view of Zionism, that, oh, it's all beautiful. Look what we're building in the land. Well, that was all behind us. We have to see clearly what is here now and what's in front of us. That's what Torah is showing us. That if we don't include everyone in the decisions that affect them and their families, they're going to just get totally confused about what was behind us and where do we need to go now. And what happens is they get caught. We get caught. We get caught. There's no they. We get caught in the energy of rebelling, opposing, taking, just seizing power without paying attention to the long-term consequences of the violence that we're unleashing right now. We all fall into following leaders and ourselves taking power without paying attention to what's going to happen to the next generation. How are our actions? How is the soul, the heart, the culture that we are promoting of taking for just one group? How is that going to affect the future? So finally, what happens is Aaron, who is the great peacemaker of Torah, steps in and he presents a third way. And this is back to my first question. How do we speak truth to power and stand up against injustice? And he says, he shows what is called the third way. Uh, there's even a movement called Third Siders that was really promoted by Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication. The third sider doesn't take one side or another. The third sider stands for protecting all life. And so Aaron tweaks the ritual, uh, and he says he makes sure that the ritual is intended to protect all life. And he picks up the ritual instruments, the incense in this point, and I'm just taking in how incense is a part of ritual in all parts of our globe. Aaron takes the incense and uses it to restore the energy of wholeness, of inclusion, by carrying the burning incense to stand between the living and the dying. And he ends the plague. He ends yet another plague against the Israelites. And he affects God. He affects the structure of things by bringing forth and creating a ritual or building on the ritual that they already have to stand for everyone. And earth and the mystery, Yud He Vav He, the Torah, the God here, actually stops the plague, because finally this is the ritual that is wanted. And this is the ritual that was intended perhaps all along, but it has to come from the intention and of the heart and the awareness of what's happening, what's needed right now. So this incense of warming the hearts, and this incense not only was used then, but it gets, Torah tells us, it gets actually burned into the cover for the altar of the Mishkan that will travel with the people, so that it's there to always remind us that the purpose of our ritual is to create wholeness, and that wholeness is the starting point for addressing any conflict. And so Korach's name also means ice. Korach represents leadership and movements that come from frozen, unprocessed trauma. Korach led from that trauma, the trauma of not being included, of not being seen, of not being respected, and the trauma of coming from enslavement, and the trauma of fear and worry and being chased and being sent into wars. He comes from, his leadership comes from that trauma, and it leads to horrific results. The world needs leadership. Torah is telling us that carries the possibility of healing, past, present, and future. Leadership that holds all life with reverence. And we're now living in the horror of world leaders who lead from their trauma, who amplify our trauma, who play on our trauma, who keep repeating stories of our trauma in ways that just instill it in us instead of helping us heal. And this puts all of us in grave danger. And Aaron, as the peacemaker, consistently owns what has happened to him and speaks what has happened to him. Then he takes space, he remains silent to integrate what's happening, and he models how we can move on from trauma and not act from trauma. So we see that Torah is giving us so many tools and approaches to speak out against injustice, to take action that heals, rather than from allegiance to one side. It means to speak to the common needs and concerns of everyone. It means to take seriously that, yeah, some people have been excluded from decision making. So we need to create something where we're all going to be included. It means speaking to unite, not to divide. When we look at our leaders, where are they starting from? Are they starting from the interest of all of humanity that is we're entering into what will surely be the hottest summer on record? Exactly what the commentators pointed to Korach doing. Are they speaking from concern about how to heal that, which is afflicting all of us? Or are they just speaking to their own concern, the enrichment of their own family and those who follow them? So it means not just making our stance for wholeness dependent on how anyone responds to us. It means standing up for everyone's needs. And ultimately, it's a recognition that the meeting of our needs, our safety, our freedom, our security only happens when everyone's safety and freedom and security are included and cared for and valued. And it means on the smallest level that we have to learn how to live from that place. And that is not easy, because we are living under leadership amplifying division and dividing and us against them. So for us to break from that, we have to be as courageous as Aaron and pick up our burning sticks of incense and bless everyone and really stand for everyone. And when we're in the middle of arguments and people who think we're betraying them, we have to stop and put ourselves in their shoes and say, I hear how you can be seeing what I'm doing that way, and that's not what I want to be doing. What I want to be doing is what the courageous Israeli and Palestinian peacemakers are doing when they say, don't take my side or your side. Palestinians and Israelis saying, don't be pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, be pro-peace. Stand there. And that is the burning incense that you can hold. That is the power that you can hold that can purify us from the divisions of the world. Thank you.